fucking straw's gone in the bottle now. Hi, I'm Peas, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm looking at 1992's Lost in Time, the sequel to Waxwork. I first saw this when I was about 14, long before I ever managed to actually track down the original film. I watched Lost in Time over and over, usually at some ungodly hour when I probably should have been asleep and dreaming about a roast beef dinner that's come to life and the Yorkshire puddings are trying to get into my mind. Lost in Time settles into my head in a way that certain films do when you're young. Not because they're perfect, but because they arrive at the right moment in your life and they just sort of lodge themselves into your brainules. When I eventually saw the original Waxwork, it became an instant favourite too, but by then the sequel had already had its own special corner carved into my memory. Now I reckon this is probably going to be one of my longest videos to date, so I recommend at this point you crane your neck to an unnecessarily painful position, bring your face nice and close to mine. Closer! Feel my breath on your eyes. And now, simply sit on your hands and give yourself pins and needles. Now you're ready for the video.
What are we going to do, Mark?
We're just going to pretend like nothing happened.
But what if one of those creatures got out?
How?
Lost in Time is a comedy horror that leans way more into the comedy than the horror. The story follows Mark and Sarah. After Sarah is accused of murdering her stepfather, the only way to clear her name is to show evidence and proof of what really happened. This is a problem though, because what really happened involves magic, alternate dimensions, and a sequence of events no sane jury on Earth is going to believe. Mark and Sarah use Solomon's locket, an amulet they find in Sir Wilfrid's hidden room. It kind of works like a compass for time doors. The needle shifts and the little doors on it open, and there's some blue glowing going on whenever a gateway is close by. That is how they move from one reality to the next. They follow the locket, step through each door, and land in a different horror world. Every one of these places tries to draw them in, reshape them, and make them part of its story, so they have to stay sharp and fight the pull while gathering the evidence they need to clear Sarah's name. Every jump pushes the plot forward, a new reality, a new threat, another piece of proof they need to escape with. From gothic labs to haunted mansions, from alien corridors to fog-choked Victorian streets, each world gives them something they need or tries to take something from them. It's a strange setup, but it works, with each segment feeding into the next as Mark and Sarah follow Solomon's locket from door to door, clawing their way back to the real world before Sarah is convicted of a murder that she did not commit. I remember rushing into school after I watched this. I was excited to talk about the film with my best friend, an overly hairy lad and fellow horror fan who'd also watched Lost in Time recently. We were yapping away like fucking idiots, rattling through all the homages to our favourite horrors, the Bruce Campbell cameo, the whole lot. But what really jumped out was the gore. We both agreed we hadn't seen this level of violence outside of an 18-rated film, and even though it's all played for laughs, it still felt like the movie was pushing at the edges of what the censors would normally allow for this age rating. Watching Lost in Time now, what stands out isn't solely the nostalgia, it's also the sheer confidence of the complete chaos. Up until the final segment, the film jumps between horror genres like it's in a mad rush, never stopping to explain itself or apologise, and it never feels disjointed or random. Every shift serves the story, every world pushes the plot forward, and the whole thing stays strangely coherent in a way that probably on paper it really looked like it wouldn't. It's rough, it's loud, stitched together with enthusiasm instead of subtlety, and it all works perfectly. You can practically feel the filmmakers grinning behind the camera. And although the tone leans more toward comedy, it never loses that strange, uneasy edge. And as you watch, clearly the actors in every segment were having the absolute time of their lives. Lost in Time jumps straight into where the first film ends, letting us relive one of the funniest deaths in horror history. Patrick Macnee having his head torn off by a werewolf, but not before he has calmly blurted out, "Oh my goodness."
Oh my goodness!
It's such a bizarrely polite reaction to something that violent, and it's damn hilarious. I can't help thinking that the whole moment is a quiet nod to The Howling, where Macnee and werewolves shared the screen in a very different context. It's a strange little connection, but it fits the film's habit of slipping between genres and winking at the past, giving horror fans a cheeky "how's your father" along the way. Then Lost in Time begins. It shifts into its own story, with a disembodied hand becoming the villain that links the two films. It crawls out from the burning Waxwork Museum from the first movie, sneaks onto the taxi that our heroes have taken to get home, and promptly strangles the life out of Sarah's dad before beating his skull in with a hammer. All the while we've got comedic music, sound effects, blood spraying everywhere, and Sarah taking a full face of condiments and gore. It's a clear nod to Evil Dead 2, and it sets the tone for everything else that follows. From then on, we're thrown into the different worlds, films, genres via magical portals. Now, before I bless you with my thoughts on Waxwork II after this recent rewatch, let's take a quick look at the worlds that Mark and his girlfriend Sarah end up crashing through. Things kick off in the world of Frankenstein and his monster. Martin Kemp has taken a break from playing bass in Spandau Ballet and is now Baron Frankenstein in a full Hammer horror style setup. We've got the hunchback assistant, gothic mansion, lab equipment, the whole Victorian rich person's house setup. Kemp bullies the hell out of his creation, and then the creature finally snaps. Mr. Baron von Dr. Frankenstein's head is crushed, teeth flying out, eyeballs popping, and the top of his skull bursting open, launching his moist brain straight into Mark's hands. Comedy sound effects and jaunty music and absolute carnage run through the entire thing. It's like a stage show where everyone except Martin Kemp has been told a segment is being played for laughs, and the juxtaposition is bloody hilarious. Then, after passing through another portal, the couple are split up. Mark is dropped into a world that's suddenly all black and white, a straight throwback to the House on Haunted Hill and The Haunting. He looks like a bargain-bin Beatles member who's taken a wrong turn in Liverpool and ended up in this monochrome nightmare. The mansion is pure old-school horror. The walls shift and bulge. Doors open by themselves slowly. Loud knocks come from nowhere and everywhere. Cobwebs hang off every shelf and corner like the place has been abandoned for 100 years. There's a classic ghostly child's voice drifting through the halls, whispering warnings, giggling, and taking the cliched cheesiness into the stratosphere and just owning it. And in the middle of all this madness, it's Bruce Campbell, pipe in hand, playing John Loftmore. He's clearly been given full permission to just Bruce Campbell as much as he wants. We get dramatic pauses, exaggerated reactions, everything you would see in a vintage horror, but Bruce has dialed it up to Bruce. After playing things mostly straight, this particular segment shifts tone completely. It goes from spooky, dreamlike and sinister, and then suddenly we go full balls to the wall. Loftmore somehow ends up restrained, arms tied above his head, chest skin flayed clean off with his ribs fully exposed, and yet he still manages to say deadpan,
I think we're in big trouble here.
And we are now not watching a haunted house story featuring Bruce Campbell. We're now watching a Bruce Campbell story featuring a haunted house. We're in full comedy mode. Mark cuts the rope, sending John crashing to the floor with a thud that would have killed a normal human. But it's Bruce fucking Campbell, so he just groans when he's pulled up again by Mark. Mark pulls bits of debris from between John's ribs, each one popping free with a ridiculous cork sound. Meanwhile, a possessed character starts hurling objects across the room. Mark ducks every time, letting a book, a hammer, a bunched up rope and a bag of salt smack John. Mark even tries rinsing the salt out of the open ribs, which absolutely doesn't help, and I'll not spoil why. There are moments in this one that drift into being genuinely creepy, but the segment is so short and Bruce's unhinged reactions are so relentless that it never tips fully into horror. He keeps the whole thing wobbling between fear and farce, and it works beautifully. And while Mark is hanging out with Bruce Campbell and dealing with ghosts and possession in the haunted house on Haunted Hill world, Sarah has gone on her own escapade and ends up in space, drops straight into an Alien parody. This Alien world is essentially a very quick summary of Alien, complete with unhinged male egos, swearing, and Sarah thrown into an Ellen Ripley-style role. We get the industrial setting, frantic camera movements, harsh lighting, and a creature that looks like a kind of blend of Alien, Predator, and even Robocop. It's clearly a man in a suit, but so was the xenomorph in the original film that it's parodying, so it just fits. There's even a version of a face hugger here. It latches onto Sarah's head and leaves her with a tube rammed down her throat and then a pair of ridiculous, almost cartoon-like eyes perched on the top of her head. I'll leave the source of this alien infection for you to discover yourself, though. The violence in this section is fantastic. An alien tail to the ball sack, a head lifted and stretched before being slammed down like an accordion, a head popping after depressurization, and an alien climbing from a guy's mouth rather than bursting from his chest. It all plays like someone took Alien, removed a chunk of the budget, and blended it with the classic British sci-fi comedy series Red Dwarf. Together again, Mark and Sarah drop into a kind of medieval world, all magic and swords, sorcery and warlocks, as well as David Carradine from the 1970s TV series Kung Fu. The soundtrack in this section is genuinely brilliant, shifting from the usual sweeping fantasy music into something that sounds a bit like Enigma. Remember them? It gives the whole segment a strange, mystical pulse that stands out from the rest of the film. I tried to find the track on Spotify. No luck though, but I did find it on YouTube's. Thanks, YouTube's. In this segment, we get shape-shifting cat people, and Carl from Die Hard as the villain, Scarabus, an evil sorcerer. Alexander Godunov was instantly recognisable thanks to those lovely blonde locks, and he brought a real presence to every role, whether it was Carl in Die Hard, Daniel in Witness, or Max in Money Pit. Sadly, he died in 1995 at 45 years of age, far too young, and his loss was felt. He always carried weight and intensity in the roles that he played. Now, swords and sorcery films do nothing for me. Never have. And this segment in Waxwork II bores the shit out of me. It is the longest part of the film, taking up almost half the runtime. Everything before this point has energy, jokes, gore, movement, something to latch onto. Then you hit this medieval magic world, and it's like the film slams on the brakes. It drags, it stretches, it pads itself out, and God, you can feel all of it. The highlight from this segment is the fight that spills across multiple worlds. We get Jekyll and Hyde, a Dawn of the Dead homage with blue zombies and a mall shootout. We get Jack the Ripper, Nosferatu with sound cards, and even a Godzilla-style sequence where the characters suddenly look Asian. I doubt they could get away with that today. Sadly, the whole thing feels like a tease of what the film could have been. It shows us all these strange, exciting places that Mark and Sarah could have visited instead, which only makes this final sword and sorcery world feel even more like the weakest option. It's long, slow, and nowhere near as inventive as the glimpses we get in that fight. My guess is that it came down to budget, because fantasy adventure settings were famously cheap to shoot in the late 80s and early 90s, just like classic westerns from like the 50s and 60s. Out of all the worlds they visit, the Bruce Campbell segment is my favourite. Not just because it's Bruce, but because it's the most insane. The madness never feels accidental. It feels intentional, controlled and completely in tune with the tone that they're aiming for. By the end of Lost in Time, it almost feels like it's begging for a television spin-off, which never happened. The third film that was in talks never materialised either, even though Zach and Anthony Hickox, the creator of this film, were both involved. And that's the thing that holds Waxworks II Lost in Time together for me, the sincerity. You can see the rough edges, but you can also see the joy behind it. It's messy, uneven, but charming, made by people who clearly loved the genres that they were playing about with. That sincerity carries it further than its budget or structure ever could. Lost in Time is a genuinely enjoyable piece of early 90s comedy horror, and most of it holds up far better than you'd expect. But unfortunately, that long medieval Scarabaeus detour still has to be counted. It drags the whole thing down for an easy, I would have given it an 8, down to 6 out of 10. I know, it's painful. It was painful giving it that rating. Finally, the film then decides to end with a rap song in the credits. In the grand tradition of Ghostbusters 2 and People Under the Stairs, the song is so bad, but the dance that goes with it made my anus vanish entirely. Thank you so much for your time today. I really, really do appreciate it. I hope you had as much fun watching this video as I did creating it. I'm away now before Scarabaeus drags me back into that medieval void. Oh my god. Peace be with you. Always.
Peace the cloud.